evening. Tonight, Brother Stephen will continue to give us his lecture about the Four Noble Truths. Let's do the 要请咱的 Brother Stephen 咱做背示导。
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank our Heavenly Father, our Suzun Simu, and to all our Buddha saints and sages up there, to our senior master Zhang, to our all the seniors, to our Zhou and Cai Dian Chuan Si, to all our masters, and especially to all of you here tonight who attended this Tao lecture and given me this opportunity to share my knowledge to you about the Tao. Tageho ami, Tao Sui Hiu Hak Be Kam Xia Thiên Ung Su Tiek, Lao Zhou Su Zun Su Biu Tai Tiek, Lao Jian Lang, Go Yi Jian Lang, Zhou Giao Cai Dian Chuan Zhu, Dian Chuan Zhu Go Yi Dian Chuan Zhu Zhu Bi, Go Kam Xia Go Yi Dou Qin Ki Na Ami, Diam Ji Ge Lan Zoom 一班，互學學這機會，甲恁學習。有學所了解嘅道理。So for tonight, I will be continuing my lecture about Four Noble Truths. Okay. So last week, so tonight I'll be continuing my lecture about the Four Noble Truths, Part 2. Kinaami,有學咩甲恁學習。四聖諦嘅第二部分。The Four Noble Truths. Like last week, we have talked about the first and the second noble truth. The first is about our life is full of suffering, or life is a sea of suffering. And the second is about the origin of our suffering and why we continue to suffer. The reason why we continue to suffer is because our heart is full of greed, aversion, and ignorance. So 咱頂禮拜咱講四聖諦嘅第一條第二，第一就是講人生是苦海，了第二就是講，敢若咱生命呐，敢若咱人生也是一個苦海，了那咱生命呐較濟苦，就是為着咱心也過也濟貪嗔痴，為着這三個毒，咱只一做伙，所以咱生命過較濟苦。So let us continue by discussing the third and the fourth noble truth. The third noble truth is about the end of suffering. We can only end our suffering by achieving Nirvana. 第三，今仔咱要講第三條、第四個聖諦。第三個聖諦就是講。咱要安怎結束咱的苦，就是愛學安怎消，安怎消業，是安怎減緩，安怎消。The third noble truth. To begin with, we can think of our Buddha as a doctor, like a doctor curing a patient of their illness. A doctor will prescribe medicine for a patient's illness. And our Buddha, he will also describe medicine for us. And what is our illness? We are suffering from the illness because we have so many worldly problems and worries, as well as suffering. So what medicine will the Buddha prescribe to us? He will prescribe Nirvana as our medicine in order to end our problems, worldly problems, and suffering. 咱會識個拔，就親像一個醫生，你看病，了咱的病是啥物？咱的病就是咱生命真濟煩惱，個真濟痛苦，了咱的拔就要派咱上正。派咱一個藥會醫咱的苦，交咱的問題。了迄個藥是啥物？迄藥就是咱咧所講的滅 或是印度嘅叫做 Nirvana。What is Nirvana? Nirvana is the Sanskrit word or Indian word meaning blowing out. And when we say blowing out, it means it means to extinguish our flame of personal desires. Nirvana to si isu kong灭，了若是咱讲灭，是咱要灭什么物件？咱就是要灭消灭咱的欲望，伊着咱的心真侪欲望。了，若是咱甲消灭咱的欲望无，咱就会较少问题，咱就会较少痛苦。So we have to blow out our desires because we have so many desires, and these desires gives us so many problems and suffering. By blowing out our wrong desires, we will definitely be able to end our suffering and feel more happy immediately. So why do we need to end? Why do we need to? But let us ask ourselves, why do we need to end or blow out our desires? Perhaps this story will explain us further, which is the monkey trap. Lan ka na lan to ay灭掉咱的欲望，伊就咱欲望互咱真侪问题，搁互咱生命感觉永远袂满足，所以咱都爱给灭掉。可能我这要讲这个故事会互恁较了解，敢若咱都爱灭掉咱的欲望。这个故事叫做 The Monkey 掠狗的故事。So this story goes like this. In southern India, the way they used to trap a monkey is by using a coconut. The coconut is tied to a tree, and inside the coconut they placed a bait, which is something sweet, by drilling a hole and placing the sweet inside. Now the hole is just big enough for a monkey to place his hand into it. So a monkey will come across the coconut, and immediately he will smell that there is something sweet inside the coconut, and the monkey will immediately be attracted to the coconut, not knowing that it is a bait. It is a bait to a trap. So the monkey will try to insert his hand into the coconut to try to grab the sweet, and unsurprisingly, he will be able to insert his hand into the hole. And once his hand is into the hole, he will try to grab that sweet by clenching its fist. This time, once he clenched the sweet inside the coconut, and suddenly he will not be able to pull his hand out of the coconut. So why is he unable to pull his hand out of the coconut? Is it because the hole became smaller? No, it's because his hand, which is now clenched like a fist, is suddenly too big to be able to get his hand out of the hole. So because of this, the monkey is trapped, and he will be captured by the hunter who laid forth this trap. So this ends the story. So 这故事就是安怎掠狗。伫南印度无，伊古早安怎掠狗，就是放一个野子，了野子绑喺一个树丛，了野子内底无有放一个真甜的物件，了伊安怎甲迄个真甜的物件放喺迄野子内底，就是应该挖一个坑，迄个坑拄啊好尔，互迄个狗会当伸伊的手入去。所通常无都有狗会经过迄个经过一粒野子，了伊会闻到讲，敢若款有一个真芳的甜的物件，所以迄狗就会想要摕迄个甜的物件来食，所以伊就甲伊的手伸入去迄个野子内底，伊想要摕迄个甜的物件来食。了伊甲伊的手伸入去无，了伊就甲伊手 伊就夹迄个猪，了伊夹迄个猪了，伊才忽然间无法当甲伊手无法度甲伊手腾出来迄个牙齿，点是为着迄个空变较细，毋是，是为着即马伊手无，伊划着迄个猪无，忽然间都变伊的手都变做伤肥咯，都无法甲伊手摕出来咯。了解到就害咯，伊就一定向掠去咯，就一定向掠去咯，就走袂出去咯。所以这故事到这结束。So what does this story tell us about? This story tells us it's all about learning to let go. All the monkey has to do is to let go of his hand by unclenching the fist, and he will be able to escape the monkey trap. But because he is unwilling to let go, he traps himself, and as a result, he will be captured by the hunter. 这个故事的意思就是讲，咱爱放弃，或是爱放下。其实这狗无，伊若是伊要想要走的这个，伊想要逃走无，伊就爱学放下。伊要怎放下，就是将伊的手放开迄个猪。若是伊个放开迄个猪，伊的手都袂伤肥，就变做拄好，伊都会当存出来迄个空。毋过伊无甘愿放下无，伊就害咯，伊就向掠着咯，伊就向绑着咯，就走袂去咯。So this story tells us that attachment ties us into this world and it makes our life miserable. But we must ask ourselves, do we have many attachments in this world? Yes, we indeed have many attachments, whether it is material attachment like attachment to money, to our possession, or attachment to pleasurable things like eating and drinking, or attachment to our opinions, like we have our opinions on religions and politics. These are all attachment. As long as we are not able to let go of our attachment, our life will be very miserable and we will always feel bitter. 其實無，咱真濟 attachment，就是咱所講的執着，咱調的咱的財產，調的咱所有的物件，調的想要賺濟錢通，互咱家己，了個調的享受，調的過爽的日子，個調的咱的想法，像咱有像調的咱想法，像咱感覺咱大家咱會相信，大家咱會所信的物件攏對，無管是宗教或是經濟，咱攏感覺咱逐擺對。所以這種物件，這攏是叫做執着或是 attachment。若是咱無學來放開這寡執着無，咱的生命，咱永遠會感覺袂滿足，了咱會永遠會感覺一直繼續感覺咱的生命那苦啊，安尼。So we must learn to let go of our bad desires and attachment, because like we said last time, not all desires are bad. Some desires are good actually, like wanting to do good things and wanting to help others and wanting to become a Buddha. But unfortunately, most of our desires are bad. So we must learn to let go. But so how do we let go of our bad desires? By knowing our wants and needs. 咱都愛學放開咱的無好的欲望，叫咱的執着。其實唔是攏總咱的欲望是歹，嘛有好的欲望，像咱想要做好代，想要求進步，想要做佛。毋過較濟咱的欲望無坦白講，無是攏歹，了對咱無好，所以咱都愛學來放開。了咱要放開咱的欲望，咱都愛知咱的需要。叫咱會想買的物件， So we need to learn to identify what is our wants, what are our wants, and what are our needs. To be honest, our needs in our life are very basic. We need foods to eat, waters to drinks, clothes to wear, uh, house and lots to live, and transportation to get around. These are very basic, and most of us has all of these. These are what we call our needs. But how about our wants? We have so many wants in this world. We want to eat good food. We want to drink good wines. We want to wear designer clothes. We want to live in a very big house, and we want to drive a fancy car. And we want to go to a lot of places to travel, and we want to have a lot of money, and we want to enjoy our life, and many more. That's why we can see in this picture, our wants outweighs our needs. That is why our heart always feels heavy, because we are never satisfied. That's why because we are never satisfied, hence we are trapped in this world just like the monkey trap. So right now, we are all a Tao cultivator. If we want to become a Buddha, or if we want to immediately become more happier, we must learn to let go of our undesirable wants. Learn to live simply, continue to work hard, but do not be too attached to our desires and opinions. If we learn to let go of our many wants and learn to live more simply and learn to be less greedy and be more compassionate and be more benevolent, our life will be much more happier. So 这个咱看这个图，咱会想买的物件比咱需要的物件较重，所以咱为着咱想买的物件较重，比咱真需要的物件无，所以咱心感觉也重，所以咱为着安尼无，咱则去感觉咱永远去用这世界的问题、世界的代志、发生的代志绑牢着，走袂开。其实咱需要的物件无真简单尔，咱需要有通食、有衫通穿、有通住、有通坐车，或是有通花车，这个咱就会当好好过日子咯。毋过咱想买的物件也多，咱想要食好，咱想要啉好，咱想要穿好，咱想要住喺好的厝，咱想要花水的车，咱想要去遐侪所在当佚佗，了咱想要享受，想要爽，逐项拢想买，为着咱逐项拢想买，无咱则永远袂感觉满足。所以咱为着安尼，无咱永远咱的心则感觉也重。所以咱今仔咱咧修道无，咱有去得着道甲修道无，咱都爱学满足，学对简单的物件都满足。巴斯咱有通食，有通穿，有通困，有交通通带咱要去的所在，咱都爱欢喜咯。为着遐侪世界遐侪人，佫无一寡物件佫欠吧，所以若是咱有一寡简单的物件，咱都爱感觉满足咯。所以咱都爱学简单的物件，咱都爱满足。了，咱都爱学有慈悲心，茫受过贪，帮忙比咱较近的人，了做好代，咱都会了。第一重要爱学放开咱会真侪无需要的欲望，咱的生命就会较欢喜咯。安尼恁有了解无？ So next. So aside from learning to let go in order to live a happier life, we must also learn to live in the present moment. So 咱怎么讲无？除了咱都爱学放下无，把再来互咱较欢喜无，咱嘛爱学活在当下，安尼。So to live in the present moments means we must learn to let go of our past and do not worry and fear what will happen to us in the future. So 咱要活在当下，无咱就是爱学，茫想过一直咧想以前的代志，了慢慢一直咧烦恼将来的代志。Although we may think that it's easy to do this, which is live in the present moment, but the truth is the opposite is the truth, because most of the time we are not living in the present moment. We are either being nostalgic of our past by thinking of our glory days of our youth, or we worry too much about the future, like we worry about our bills that are bills due to be paid tomorrow or the next day or the next week, whether we have enough money to pay our Meralco or our dues, whether we have the money to pay for many of our things that are needed, whether we have enough to get by. And so we worry about so many things about our future. That's why many of us find it very difficult to live in the present moment. 虽然讲活在当下，敢若款真简单做，不过其实对遐侪人来讲，无活在当下，毋是真简单做。伊着咱较侪无咱较常无咱嘛是常常一直咧想古早的代志，一直咧怀念古早生命较简单，日子较简单过。了咱嘛一直咧烦恼将来的代志，像咧烦恼咱敢有钱通付，或是巴拉咱的电池、咱的煤拉库、咱的水钱，或是咱烦恼咱敢有钱通，咱饲咱的囝、饲咱的某、饲咱的家庭，安尼。所咱较常是咱无咧专心活的，咱一直咧想来想去，咱就一直咧烦恼，咱生命就真无欢喜，安尼。So, if we want to live a happier life, let us stop worrying about or stop thinking too much of our past and stop worrying about our future. The past is past and the future has yet to happen. Let us just concentrate on the present moment, like everyone right now. Stop thinking about what will happen tomorrow and stop worrying and also stop thinking about the past. Just focus on the lecture right now. Focus listening to what I'm saying right now, and you will also, and your mind will clear up, and you will also feel lighter and more happier. Understand? This is what we call living in the present moment. So lan pagebo na sila nung ka hwahi bo, lan tumang itile shu ita, yung mamang itile shu chong lai, 专心做这咧做诶代志，像咱大家咧听道理，但是恁听道理，你就茫想过去诶代志，慢慢想明仔日咧发生诶代志，专心听同学咧讲诶就好咯。专心听同学咧讲诶，你就会感觉甲那款头壳较清咯，了你就会感觉你诶头壳甲那款较无烦恼咯，较无烦恼咯，安尼你就会感觉较欢喜咯，你就了解无？这就是咱咧所讲诶。活在当下，安尼你有了解无？安尼 next. So let me tell you a story about a farmer and his horse. 这咱要甲你讲一个故事，叫做塞翁失马。Once upon a time, there is a farmer named Sai-ong, and he has a horse. Unfortunately, the one horse that he possessed one day ran away, and because the horse ran away, the news of his horse running away managed to reach his best friend. His best friend felt very bad for him, and during that night went to see him and to console him and asked him, "Are you all right, Sai-ong?" Sai-ong simply replied, "I'm okay. This thing already happened. No use worrying about it. No use worrying about it because sometimes things are really out of our control." That's what Sai-ong told his friend. And fortunately, immediately the next day, the horse which ran away suddenly came back to Sai-ong's house. Additionally, the horse came home, bringing with him a companion horse. So this time, Sayong is in possession of not just one, but two horses. So Sayong's son was very happy upon learning that they have two horses, and he told his dad, "Wow, Dad, now we have two horses. So good days are coming since we have two horses to help with our farming duties. So now we will have easier time to do our work." That's what the son told his dad. But Sayong simply said, whether this is a good thing or bad thing, we must not get too hung up with it. That's what Sayong told his son. So a week passed, and one day Sayong and his son was riding their horses, which is the two horses. Sayong was riding the first horse, and his son was riding the second horse, which is the wilder horse. And while his son was riding the wilder horse, the horse was very naughty and managed to jump very high. And as a result, the son fell down and broke his leg. And the severity of his injury was quite urgent. And as a result, when they brought his son to see a doctor, the doctor said that your son's injury is very severe. He might not be able to walk for months, maybe even a year, or maybe even a lifetime. So that night, Sayong's wife felt very horrible and said, "How unlucky we are. Now we have to pay. Our son could possibly be crippled for his life. And as a result, we must pay so many money to rehab our son." So what did Sayong say? Sayong just said, things already happened. No use to worry about this much further. And whether this will be good or bad for us, we really don't know. That's what Sayong told his wife. So a month passed. Suddenly, the country which Sayong lives went to a war with the neighboring country. And the king ordered that every young and able-bodied man should be drafted into the army. So everybody was drafted into the army. But the military, upon seeing that Sayong's son is crippled and unable to walk, they decided to exempt him from serving the military. And as a result, Sayong's son was spared, while many other neighbors' son was drafted into the military. And while the war continues to rage on, many of Sayong's neighbor's son was either killed or was severely injured. But because Sayong's son was spared from being drafted, he was exempted from being drafted, he was spared. So this ends our story. So 这个Sayong司马的故事，古早无有一个人叫做Sayong，伊有饲一只马，了一日这只马无走起无，伊的厝边就是Sayong的朋友，才感觉这个Sayong真歹运，了迄暗才来找伊，才讲你有好势无？了Sayong才甲因讲，我好势尔，这个代志就发生咯，要安怎？我要安怎？我已经接受咯，我嘛无办法，伊就安尼应。了过一日了无，明仔日无这只马才忽然间倒来，了伊毋是干那倒来尔，伊佫带一只马甲伊的同伴甲伊做伙来，所以这Sayong就有两只马咯。了伊的囝看到无，感觉真欢喜，了才伊甲伊的囝讲，爸。咱这有两只马咯，安尼招咱好运咯。咱有两只马会甲咱斗相战，咱会祖产会食。所以咱这要祖产，就会较快活咯，就会较爽咯。咱就会通较侪食咯。安尼，要Sayong才甲因讲，这个是甲咱换好运啊。毋过咱嘛无需要受过欢喜，伊就咱这是好代或是歹代，咱嘛毋知。 所以咱嘛是爱较小心吧，莫受过欢喜，受过安尼。要过一礼拜，西王叫伊个囝咧徛迄两只马，踮因的田咧行来行去。了迄个囝无，伊拄拄好咧徛迄只马无较离，了迄个皮皮跳无，迄个西王会惊则跋落去，伊跋落去无则挤伊的骹。了西王则带伊的囝去互医生看，了医生则看无则讲哦，你的囝伊骨挤去咯，检查几啊个月袂当行咯，目下有可能佫几年吧，诚久才会好起，目下永远袂好起，永远摆骹袂当行路咯。了迄暗无，西王的某则感觉诚歹运，则咧嫌讲，咱诚歹运啊，咱的囝袂通行路咯。了咱就该开诚侪钱，互咱医咱的囝，那咱哈歹运啊。了西王则甲伊讲，这是好或歹代，咱嘛毋知。了代志都已经发生了，免怎？咱嘛是着接受，伊就安尼讲。了过一个月了无，因的国才忽然间要拍战。了因的王则讲，拢总少年的男妹，少年较健康的男妹，都当兵，都爱去做兵去拍战。了毋过因看到无看到西王的囝摆骹袂当行路。所以伊个囝则无需要去当兵去拍战，所以就安尼无，伊个厝边会囝交规个少年的人无遐侪去用，遐侪战争受伤，也是遐侪战争去用拍死。毋过西王的囝无，伊就无需要去当兵，无则无代志发生，则无去用无受伤去用拍死，所以伊就搁活吧，所以这故事安遮结束。So, what does this story tells us about the story of the farmer and his horse? This story tells us that many things will happen to us in our life, whether it will be happiness, or whether it will be suffering. It depends on how we react or interpret an event. And like we always say in the Tao, whether fortune or misfortunes are opposites, but they are not absolute. Good things will always end. Same goes for bad things. Good things and bad things are opposite, but fortunately, everything must end. So the lesson of this story tells us that whether if a good things happen, we must not get too caught up with it. But because sometimes a good thing might turn bad. Same goes for bad. If a bad things happen to us, we must not feel so bad because eventually bad things will also end. If we feel this way and if we do not get too attached with good or bad and just feel neutral about the good and bad, then we will be less attached and we will be able to live in the present moment. 咱昨摆嘅西王司马嘅故事就是意思讲，咱逐日也侪代志会发生喺咱。是好或是歹，迄就看咱安怎受咯。有诶代志，咱有诶人感觉这是好，有诶代志，有诶人感觉这是歹，这是以咱头壳安怎看代志嘅代志。了，咱嘛常常讲好交歹无是相对，毋过伊毋是绝对，伊无永远一个好诶代志袂永远好，一个歹诶代志嘛袂永远。所以，阮向咱讲即个代志，就是意思讲好歹无永远，所以咱无需要受过执着，或是受过调的好调歹。伊着好的代志一日嘛会好，歹的代志一日嘛是会歹。若是咱无调的即个好，无调的想要永远逐摆好，了若是歹的代志，咱袂感觉受过 想过 Bible 咱会晓开无，咱就会生命就会过较好，了咱就会较看开，这就是咱的咧讲的活在当下，安尼。So we can derive all the truth to be told. We can derive good from bad, and the opposite also rings true. But good things can also become bad. How do we say that bad things can become good? Because let us say something bad happened to us. Something bad happened to us. Like there will be so many trials and tribulations in our life. But for some people, the trials and tribulations, or what we call in Filipino pagsubok, they are just what we call trials and tribulations. If we learn to accept them as such as trials, and we learn to use them as stepping stones, eventually we will be, if we fail a lot of times and we learn lessons from them, eventually we can turn tragedy into triumph. That is example of turning bad things into good things. Like history is full of many examples of people who failed a lot of times in their business, but eventually after many tries, eventually they are able to succeed. These are many examples of turning bad into good. Understand? And the opposite are also true. A good thing can also become bad. Like let us say, for example, today we won millions of pesos from Lotto or from the casino. If we are not careful with our money and we spend it all in one sitting, can we squander all our wealth and become poor again? Yes, we can squander it all in one sitting. If we do that, save up the money we earn or the money we won in the lottery. This is the example of turning fortune into misery. So the lesson on this is telling us bad things can become good. Good things can become bad. So we must not be too caught up with every event that happens to our world. We must live and concentrate on the present so that we will be able to live a more happy and carefree life. 咱咧讲无好嘅代志会当，歹嘅代志嘛会当变做好，好嘅代志嘛会当变做歹。像歹嘅代志，咱世界也侪故事，也侪人出世是出世嘅歹嘅家庭，出世嘅无好嘅情形。不过伊真拍拼，伊真骨力，了伊虽然伊失败也侪摆，不过伊无失望，了伊继续一直咧拍拼无，继续了伊将失败当作经验无，伊到尾嘛是变做成功无，这就是甲将歹变做好诶例。了倒调讲无，好诶代志嘛是通变做歹，就今仔日无有可能咱趁遐侪钱，或是咱去跋筊，或是去落赌无，忽然间趁遐侪钱。毋过若是这是好代，毋过若是咱无小心无甲这个钱欠啊用无，了解随便用，甲乌白开买，逐项好拢甲买无，这个钱嘛是会用了，咱嘛是个定变做紧的人，这就是将好的代志变做歹的例，有了解无？所以好歹无，咱茫受过调，咱都爱会晓看开，但是咱会晓看开无了，专心活现代的现在无，咱就会活甲开外咯，安尼。So let us go to the fourth noble truth, which is the way. So 咱来讲第四个圣旨就是道。The fourth noble truth. The third noble truth told us that we must practice nirvana, which is learn to let go and learn to live in the present moment in order to eliminate our desires. And in order to attain nirvana by eliminating our desire, we must walk the way of the Tao. So 即第四个圣地，就是修道或是行道。若是像咱第三个圣地讲无，若是咱想要消灭咱的欲望无，消灭咱的贪嗔痴无，咱就是爱学放下，要么是爱学活在当下。咱若是要安尼做无，咱就是爱拍拼修道。So what is Tao? Tao is the way. It is the way that will lead us to enlightenment and eventually to our righteous home in the kingdom of heaven. 什么是道？道就是真理。这个真理会带人，会咱明道，会咱成道。你若是咱甲拍拼行无，会当带咱登去天顶，会当互咱做佛。To walk the way of the Tao is to walk the middle path. And what is the middle path? It is not being attached to two extremes of the life. 咱要行道的路无，就是要行中道，或是咱佛教咧所讲的中道。了儒道无是孔子咧所讲的叫做中庸。了若是咱要行中道的方法，就是茫受过调的受过执着，茫受过调的好，茫受过调的歹，茫受过调的歹，行行中路就好咯。咱咧所讲的中道。So what is the middle path? Let me tell you a story about the parable of the Lute. The parable of the Lute. During Buddha's time, there is the Buddha has a disciple. The disciple was very diligent in cultivating and meditates many hours every day. But despite meditating for many hours a day, he is not able to get rid of his desire. So one day he asked the Buddha, how do I truly get rid of my desires? Even though I practice very hard every day, meditating, renouncing all my attachment, my heart is still full of greed, anger, and desire. How do I get rid of it? So the Buddha asked him, tell me, my disciple, weren't you a lute player before you became a monk? The disciple said, yes, I am a lute player, and I'm quite good at it. So the Buddha asked him, so how do you play? How do you make sure that the lute you're playing would sound good? Should the string be tuned very loose? The disciple said, no, you cannot make the string too loose. If the string is too loose, no sound will come from out of it. So the Buddha asked him, how about if you tune the string too tight? Will it sound good? The disciple said, no, if the string is too tight, the sound will sound too sharp. And furthermore, the string might break. So the disciple added, the string must not be too loose, neither should it be too tight. It must just be tuned just the same amount, just the right tightness, not too loose and not too tight, so that it will play a beautiful music. So the Buddha told him, this is the principle of the middle path, and this is the reason why you are not successful in your meditation and cultivation. You are too hard to yourself, and at the same time, you are too hard to yourself, and at the same time, you are not able to learn occasionally how to relax and let go. That's why you are still having difficulty cultivating. Learn to let go, learn to walk in the middle path and do not go to two extremes, and you will be successful in your cultivation. This is the story of the lute. So 这个故事就是咱们讲要要怎大一个好琴。古早无这个bud有一个徒儿，这个徒儿无古早是一个还未出家无是一个真够大琴的人。不过即马伊做伊徒儿无，伊无管伊话拍拼地上，伊心阁是真乱吧。我这个bud则甲伊讲，则甲伊讲，你敢知你甲你的心啊遐乱？了迄个徒儿则讲，我嘛毋知。伊则甲伊讲，我甲你问，你古早你咧大琴，你大琴，若是你的琴受过灵，迄个受过灵无？迄线受过灵无？迄个音乐出来咁会好听？迄个徒儿则讲无好听，根本都无声音。你则甲伊讲，若是受安呢，咁无好听。伊讲搁较歹听，若是迄个线受安无，毋是干那歹听尔，迄线搁有可能会断去。了，迄个徒儿则甲伊讲，迄个线袂做受过灵，嘛袂做受过安，爱拄好尔，爱你个中央尔，伊才会放较真好听的音乐。了，这个不则来讲，这就是咱咧所讲的中道，袂做受过灵，嘛袂做受过安。咱要死命要活，要修道，要活真欢喜无？咱袂做对家己受过严，嘛袂做对家己受过灵，爱活拄好就好。安尼这个咱才会当活较欢喜，了咱才会当修道，才会当修成功。安尼这故事到这结束。So what does this story tell us about? Like what the Buddha said, this story is about the middle path. So what is the middle path? The middle path is neither denying our life of necessities nor indulging in too much luxuries. So 昨仔咱咧故事咧讲，就是咧甲咱讲中道，修道就是行中道。唔是行正平，唔是行倒平，行中的路，中的路。嗰一个意思就是讲，无要中道，就是无要受大享受，嘛无要互家己受过苦，互行活拄好就好。这就是正中道。So middle path is just like the string of the lute. We do not make it too loose. We also do not make it too tight. If the string of our heart is too loose, this is like living our life with too many luxuries. If we live our life with too many luxuries, we live just to eat good, to drink good, to buy many good things, and to enjoy, then we will be out of touch with the realities of our life, and hence we will not be able to understand the Tao, the truth, and we will not be able to become a Buddha. So this is a danger of living too loose, like a string that is tied too loose. If we live too loose, we will become out of touch with reality, and we will not be able to become a Buddha. The opposite is also the same. Being too hard and being too tight with ourselves. If we are too tight or being too hard with ourselves, like a string being tuned too hard in a lute, we will also feel that our life is so difficult. And if our life is so difficult, we will not be able to enjoy, and we will most likely break down one day, just like the guitar string snapping because it is tuned too tight. This is similar to real life, about us working too hard, not giving us enough day off to relax and to enjoy our life. If we live simply to work too hard, not resting enough, not eating well, and not taking care of our health, we will give ourselves too much stress, and we will not also be able to enjoy life. This is not good too. That's why true middle path is not being too loose with ourselves, and also not being too hard with ourselves. Middle path is living everything in moderation, which is doing the right exercise, eating the right food, sleeping enough, which is 8 hours a day, and working just enough so that we will have a life filled with joy. Understand? So咱咧讲中道，中道就是甲咱像昨晚咱咧讲迄个船，咱迄船袂做伤过冷，嘛袂做伤过暗。但是咱迄个船伤过冷无，咱就是甲咱这生命，咱咧活休学咧活，敢若款活伤过享受，咱咧活要食好，活要啉好，活要穿好，活要学白开，活要爽命。若是咱拢咧活，为着想要爽，为着想要爽，无要拍拼受道，无要拍拼知影真理无，咱就永远袂明着人生的意义的真理。了，若是咱无明着咱人生的真理，无咱就袂当成佛。这就是受过享受会无好。倒跳讲无，若是咱对家己受过严无，咱就敢若款迄个琴会煞，白甲受过红，这就是敢若款咱死一世人无，受过拍拼做事无，为着做事受过拍拼无够困，无食无好，了无够休困，了一直互家己受过艰苦咧拍拼，拍拼做事，做到要死安尼，做到要死这嘛是无好。但是你做到要死无，你就袂感觉，你就袂感觉这个生命嘛是有快活的代志。啊，这嘛是其实这嘛是无好，了这嘛是一个执着。所以咱中道就是逐项代志爱做拄好就好。运动咱嘛是运动，咱就爱运动拄好。咱嘛是爱食拄好，莫伤济，莫伤少。困咱就爱困拄好，6小时到8小时。了做事咱就是爱做拄好尔，若是忝，咱就是爱休困。但是咱逐项拢做拄好无，咱的生命，咱就会过较快活。这就是咱咧所讲的中道。安尼了。Before we end this lecture, let us discuss the Eighth Noble Path. The Eighth Noble Path is how we should practice the middle path in order that we will be able to be enlightened and become a Buddha. So what is the Eighth Noble Path? The Eighth Noble Path, like we see in the picture, it is the right view, the right intention, the right speech, the right action, right livelihood, right effort, right concentration, right mindfulness. All these are the 8 things we should do in order that we will live a life free from suffering and full of happiness. We must think the right thought. We must have the right intention. We must speak right. We must do the right thing. We must live in a righteous way. We must apply right effort in everything we do in our life. We must always be concentrated in living. And we must always be mindful of our surrounding. If we do everything of this, everything on this Eighth Noble Path, then one day we will all be enlightened and we will all become a Buddha, just like in this picture. A Buddha is enlightened and he is full of brightness. Understand? So 所以这个，所以咱今仔 before 我结束，无我先甲休学大家讲八正道。咱要修中道，就是爱学习八正道。什么是八正道？八正道就是有正见、正思、正疑、正业、正明、正清净、正定、正念，这八项就是爱这八项咱来拢总做。若是咱这个八项拢总来做落去无，就对的想法、对的力、对的生活，拢总拢对无，咱一日就会变做不像这个相片安尼。So these are what we call the Eight Noble Path. If we want to discuss the Eight Noble Path, we need more than a lecture. But because we are short on time, I can only give you a brief introduction to this. If we want to learn more about this, you may look up on it in the internet, in Facebook, or we may wait in the future for me to discuss about this or for other lecturer to discuss about the Eight Noble Path. So, Hyoha, kina, 这八正道我无时间通甲你甲大家讲，若是你想要较了解这八正道无，你会做点网络搁看，恁才会较了解，或是大家等后摆休学甲恁讲，或是别个讲师甲恁讲，恁就会较了解这八正道是啥物安尼。So these are the Eight Noble Path, and this concludes our Four Noble Truth. Our Four Noble Truth. The Four Noble Truth, let me recap. The first Noble Truth is life is full of suffering. The second Noble Truth is the cause of our suffering is because our heart is full of greed, anger, and ignorance. The third Noble Truth is the reason why how do we end our greed, anger, and ignorance? By eliminating the greed, eliminating the flame of our desires through learning to let go and living in the present moment. And number 4, how do we end our suffering? By practicing the 8 Noble Path. So these are the 4 Noble Truths. Understand? So,我大家学习四圣谛。第一个圣谛苦，第二就是灭，第三就是第二就是集，第三就是灭，第四就是道。这个4项无，但是咱你休学，咱大家了解无了，大家做无，会当成佛。休学大家有了解无？ So everyone, this concludes my lecture. If I say anything wrong, or if I say anything that offends you, I would like to ask for the forgiveness from our Heavenly Father and forgiveness from all of you. Thank you, everyone. So, kinahihuak kang katya, na si hihuak kinao kang siya miintyo, siya tage wanlyong hihuak, kam siya tage tupi.
各位同学暗暝，今仔日周俊尧讲师吼，甲顶礼拜甲咱讲的这个题目叫做四圣谛吼，四圣谛伫个吼，咱若是会晓活念心经的道亲吼，一定拢有念着这4项物件，说无苦集灭道，吼，咱伊定定念无这4字啦。什么叫做苦集灭道咧？就是讲吼，这个是吼，释迦佛祖拄拄得到道以后所讲的，伫伊33岁时阵所讲的头一篇吼，头一篇道理啦。那么伊主要题目就是说讲，咱每一个人的人生的痛苦，都是因为咱有也吼。贪嗔痴爱安尼扣做伙，就产生咱的苦哈。 咱要咱袂咱会苦咧，就是敢若有照着修道即个方法咧，咱才有法度达着讲即个苦豆无去。那么当然啦，其实人生中毋是讲干那拢总苦，嘛是有快乐的时阵啦。毋过快乐
翻译噃，请珊珊翻译。
宣传翻译歹势，请宣传翻译一
下。谢谢点谈师这边。Good evening, everyone. Tonight, our lecturer, our brother Stephen, has discussed with us the topic of the Four Noble Truths. And if we are reciting the Sing the Heart Sutra, we will know that it is mentioned there that the Four Noble Truths is already mentioned there. And it is the first lecture of our Shakyamuni Buddha when he was 33 years old. It was the first topic when he was lecturing during that time. And it says that each person, each one of us has all the sufferings in life. And these sufferings are all a collection of our greed, our hatred, and our illusions. And that everyone will be suffering because we have all these false illusions in our mind.
那么其实人生毋是拢讲苦，嘛有快乐的时阵。
And it says that life is not all suffering. There are also times of happiness.
那么快乐的时阵较短，痛苦的时阵较侪，较长。
And we will all feel that happiness is always shorter, and the times of suffering are always very long.
是迄个点钟啦，可能你快乐一天啦，甲快乐艰苦一天啦，迄个快乐迄一天感觉足紧就过去，迄个艰苦迄一天感觉足长诶。
Even though that when suffering and happiness are of the same length, example, happiness happened in one day, and suffering also happened in one day, but we will all feel that those days of happiness are so short, and those days of suffering are too long.
迄拢是心的感觉，心的感觉。
And this all happens because of the feelings from our heart.
所以咱要快乐是要痛苦，嘛是爱靠咱的心去甲改变。
So if we want to be happy or if we want to be in sadness, it all depends on our heart, on how we want to transform things.
所以咱讲修道修心嘛。
So we say that when we cultivate, we should cultivate from the heart.
那么内底咧，即人生八大苦内面咱讲迄个最后迄个苦叫做五阴炽盛。
So we say that there are 8 sufferings in life, and the last is the suffering from the 5 aggregates.
你五阴炽盛什么意思咧？咱可能向点遮稍微复述一下啦有阴就是讲咱定定有5种邪道，5种暗面，迄个阴影甲咱的迄个真如本性炸掉的，所以咱才会苦。
So what are these 5 aggregates which that is giving us so much suffering? These are 5 things that they are like shadows that are covering our true self that makes us suffer in our life.
这5种叫做色受想行识。
So these are the physical aggregate, the feeling aggregate, the perception aggregate, action aggregate, and the consciousness aggregate.
这就是咱豆去甲迄心经念体会咱了解讲原来苦毋是上天予咱的，是咱家己造成的。
So when we want to really understand this, we should try to understand and recite the Heart Sutra and to understand each and every word in it. And after that, we will realize that suffering is not given to us by heaven. It is something that we create by ourselves.
咱拄啊讲一个故事啊，拄啊迄个 Stephen 讲一个故事啊，讲迄个乐器迄个弦啊，迄个旋曲哦，若收按的时阵无好势，收铃的时阵嘛无好势。
So just like what our brother Stephen has mentioned a while, the lute, when the string is too tight, it is not going to perform well. When it is too loose, it is also not going to perform well.
所以这个时阵乐器就爱需要改 tune up。
So this time, during this time, we need to tune up the instrument.
迄个叫做调音。
That it's called tuning up.
那么咱嘛同款，咱人嘛是主要照着这开班听道理的眼睛咧，甲咱的心抽叫做个修道。
So for us humans also, we also need to tune up ourselves, our hearts, and our mind by listening to lectures, and that is a very good way of tuning up ourselves.
当然唔是干那听道理哦，咱嘛是爱看经典哦。
And of course, it is not only limited to listening to lectures, we also have to read the scriptures.
所以咱即马最后咧，就讲到咱今仔的主题，今仔日要甲各位听宣布一个代志。
So lastly, we have an announcement to make for tonight.
咱规世界迄个COVID-19 的迄个疫情敢若愈来无看到什么时阵会结束，敢若时间会拖有一阵嘛。
So it seems that the pandemic and the COVID situation is not going to end very soon, and it seems that it is going to take such a long time before it can be totally eliminated.
那么咱菲律宾迄个疫情我顶礼拜安尼跳啊跳到安尼15千，一日15千啊，可能会惊。
So especially here in our country, in the Philippines, just like what happened last week, each day we have around 15,000 newly tested positive individuals. And after hearing that number, we should all be so scared of it.
咱后仔就特别甲台湾那边沟通，那么台湾那边就甲咱说，咱即马逐日小友的时阵拜甲加100拜的时阵，咱甲伊说祈使菲律宾疫情迅速消弭，众生平安。
So after addressing this and telling our masters in Taiwan, they have advised us that after each incense offering ceremony, we have to recite the chant that for the rapid elimination of the pandemic here in the Philippines.
过来咧，咱就爱念密的真经，每一天固定念密的真经3摆。
And we have to recite the Mila Chenjing every day 3 times.
你安那念的，咱即马对面遮甲各位道亲做一个宣布
So how to recite it? We will announce it here and discuss it here right now.
请咱看咱迄个投影片内面头一个咧，咱厝内若有不长的人早暗烧香以后，咱念密的真经念3摆，念掉伫以后咧念一个回向文，说愿以此诵经功德，恳祈上天恩典。弥勒祖师愿力加倍，回向法界众生，使菲律宾新冠状肺炎病毒疫情迅速消弭，众生平安。
So every day, for those who have a holy temple at home, after offering of incense in the morning, noon, and evening, please chant the Mila Chenjing for 3 times. And after reciting it for 3 times, please recite the transference chant, which says, sincerely pray for the grace of God and the strengthened aid of Buddha Maitreya for the transference of the merit of chanting to the Dharma realm beings, for the rapid elimination of pandemic in the Philippines, and all beings be safe.
如果说我厝内无佛堂要安怎？咱厝内无佛堂，咱甲拜五开班的念，烧心香三藏，用烧心香的方法，就去对冥冥上帝拜拜到迄个加拜100拜，然后念这个弥勒真经3拜，做回向。
So for those who do not have a holy temple at home, we may light the incense in our mind, just like what we are doing every Friday before our lecture starts. And then after reciting the whole, after finishing reciting the offering in the mind, we should also recite the Mila Chanting for also 3 times. And after that, we should still also recite the transference chant, which says that sincerely pray for the grace of God and the strengthened aid of Buddha Maitreya for the transference of the merit of chanting to the Dharma realm beings, for the rapid elimination of pandemic in the Philippines, and all beings be safe.
后来第3项咧，可能伊说讲我迄有几礼节还佫袂晓，那么咱若袂晓背有几礼节后项希望咱利用这个疫情的点睛，好好甲学起来。若佫学袂起来咧，咱安尼落啦，咱明明上帝10颗手，安尼1颗再颗3颗4颗5颗6颗7颗8颗9颗，10颗手掉伫了后咧。咱就刷到念弥勒救苦真经3拜。
So for those who cannot recite the worship ceremony, although here we wish to encourage everyone to start memorizing and reciting all the Buddha names and Buddhas and sages names, so that we can try to recite them by ourselves. And if we still cannot, at this moment, we cannot recite all those names, we can just give 10 bows or 10 koto to our Heavenly Mother. And after the 10 bows, we then chant the Mila Chanting also for 3 times.
然后就念回向文这回向文咱拄有念过了，咱即摆请佫用英文甲因过水一下。
And also after chanting the Mila Chanting for 3 times, we also have to recite the transference chant, which says that sincerely pray for the grace of God and the strengthened aid of Buddha Maitreya in the transference of the merit of chanting to the Dharma realm beings, for the rapid elimination of pandemic in the Philippines, and all beings be safe.
因为这甲咱每一个人的身躯，甲咱每一个人的性命，拢有真大的关系。
我都咧找无迄个什么。
Also, we should all know that it is of great relevance to ourselves and to all people around us.
咱这个信心一定要提出来，好好教咱台湾道务中心交代，咱安尼好好甲念，好好甲背，好好甲回向。
We have to all show our most sincere heart, and that we should follow strictly what our center in Taiwan has advised us to do, and we should follow them diligently.
好咧，咱当然呢是尽量卖食迄个卖食有灵性的物件，尽量卖食。
And as much as possible, we should refrain from eating animal meat. Anything that has life, let us all refrain from eating them.
那么咱希望咱会大家较紧的上架出这个疫情。
And let's us all hope that by doing so, we can get rid of the COVID pandemic as soon as possible.
那么今仔日 这甲各位就先耽误几分钟吼，希望最后宣布即寡代志，咱家记喺心肝内底，逐工照安尼落去做。
So we have exceeded a few minutes of our time, and our Pastor just hope that we can all follow what is being instructed for all of us to follow, and let us do diligently so that we can also help in the elimination of the pandemic.
那么咱今仔日开班就到这多谢各位祝各位就祝大家平安。
So our lectures ends here. Thank you everybody, and we wish everybody to have safety every day.